Alright, let's get real for a minute. You're staring down at a beast of a sandwich, that classic Reuben, piled high with this ridiculously tasty, salty meat, and a thought hits you like a full-on shower thought, but with rye bread. You're like, wait a second, corned beef, where's the corn? I mean, seriously, is this some kind of culinary prank? A Mandela effect from an alternate universe where corn and beef are best buds? It's salty, it's savory, it's got that signature pinkish hue. But the one thing it doesn't have is, well, corn. The name feels like a total scam, like someone just threw two words together and hoped nobody would notice. But what if I told you the answer is hiding in plain sight, just in a language from like a bajillion years ago? The secret isn't in a vegetable aisle, it's in the dictionary, and it's way cooler than you think. So, let's rewind the clock. Forget about those sweet, juicy yellow kernels you slap on the grill in the summer. We need to go way back to Old English. In those days, the word corn, spelled C-O-R, didn't just mean the big yellow vegetable we know and love. It was a catch-all term for any small, hard particle. Think of a grain of sand, a peppercorn, or, you guessed it, a big, chunky crystal of salt. That's right, the corn in corned beef is literally just salt. Back before refrigerators were a thing, people had to get creative to keep their food from going bad, and one of the oldest tricks in the book was curing meat with a whole lot of salt. They would take these massive coarse salt crystals so big they looked like little kernels of grain and pack them all over the beef. The process was called corning, as in to preserve something with corns of salt. So corned beef literally means salted beef. Mind blown. It's not about flavor. It's about a preservation technique that's ancient AF. Now, let's set the scene. Imagine you're a sailor in the 1700s, about to head out on a gnarly months-long voyage across the Atlantic. There's no freezer on board, no vacuum-sealed packs. Your food supply needs to last, and it needs to be safe. What do you pack? You pack barrels and barrels of this heavily salted, cured beef. The salt crystals they used were huge, like rock salt you'd throw on an icy sidewalk. To the naked eye, these chunks of salt looked just like corn kernels. So sailors and merchants started calling the meat corned beef, and the name just stuck. It was the ultimate survival food, packed with protein and preserved to withstand the toughest conditions. This wasn't some fancy deli meat. This was rugged, practical, and kept entire ship crews from starving. It was the original protein bar, just way, way saltier, and, you know, made of beef. So, how did this seafaring staple become so famously Irish? This is where the story takes a wild turn. In the 17th and 18th centuries, Ireland became the undisputed king of corned beef production. Why Ireland? It was a perfect storm of factors. They had lush green pastures, which meant tons of cattle. They also had low salt taxes compared to their neighbors in England, making the curing process super cheap. Meanwhile, the British Empire was booming, and its massive naval and army forces, not to mention its colonies in the Americas, had a bottomless appetite for non-perishable food. Ireland stepped up and became the primary supplier, exporting massive quantities of corned beef all over the globe. Cities like Cork became major hubs for this trade, churning out barrel after barrel of the stuff. Ireland was literally fueling the expansion of empires with its salty beef, but here's the kicker. The most ironic plot twist in food history, while Ireland was shipping out tons of corned beef and getting famous for it, the actual Irish people back home weren't eating it. Like, at all. For the average Irish person, beef was a luxury they couldn't afford. It was far more profitable to sell the cattle or the finished corned beef for export. The food they were famous for producing was too expensive for them to put on their own tables. What did they eat instead? The humble potato, and maybe some dairy, or, if they were lucky, a little bit of pork or bacon. Corned beef was a cash crop, something made for wealthy British consumers and soldiers overseas, not for the farmers who raised the cows. Think about that. The dish most associated with Irish heritage was an uneven part of their diet in Ireland for the longest time. It's like Switzerland being famous for chocolate, but none of the Swiss people ever eating it. It's just wild. So if the Irish weren't eating it in Ireland, how did corned beef and cabbage become the quintessential St. Patrick's Day meal? The story shifts across the ocean to America. When millions of Irish immigrants fled the Great Famine and came to the United States in the 19th century, they found themselves in a totally new environment. In the bustling cities of the East Coast, like New York, they settled in neighborhoods alongside other immigrant groups, including Jewish communities. Back in Ireland, their traditional celebratory meal might have been boiled bacon or pork with potatoes. But in America, pork was expensive. Guess what wasn't? A cut of beef brisket sold at their neighboring Jewish butchers. And these butchers knew a thing or two about curing brisket. They made pastrami. The Irish immigrants found that this cured, salty beef tasted a lot like the bacon they missed from home, but it was way more affordable. They bought the corned beef, boiled it up just like they would have boiled their bacon, and threw in the cheapest vegetable they could find, cabbage, and just like that, a new tradition was born. Corned beef and cabbage wasn't a nostalgic dish from the old country. It was a dish of survival, of adaptation, created by immigrants making the best of what they had in a new world. Now let's talk about what that ancient salting process actually does to the meat. This isn't just about stopping bacteria in its tracks. The corning process is a work of culinary magic. When you cure a tough cut of beef like brisket in a saltwater brine, something incredible happens. The salt not only preserves the meat, but also starts to break down its tough connective tissues. This is why corned beef, despite coming from a notoriously chewy cut, becomes so unbelievably tender and juicy. When you cook it low and slow, it practically melts in your mouth. The brine is also where that signature reddish-pink color comes from. Curing salts often contain nitrates or nitrites, which fix the color of the meat, keeping it from turning a dull gray when cooked. So you get this incredibly flavorful, ridiculously tender, and beautifully colored piece of meat, all thanks to a method that's basically ancient food tech. This is what our ancestors did before they had Instacarts and refrigerators. They were master food scientists, using salt corns as an invisible armor to protect their food. So, the next time you bite into a Reuben sandwich or sit down to a plate of corned beef and cabbage, you can appreciate the insane journey that food has been on. It's a story that spans centuries and continents. It's a tale of old words, salty sailors, economic empires, and immigrant ingenuity. That name, corned beef, isn't a mistake or a weird quirk. It's a history lesson packed into 2 words. It represents a time when a corn was a crystal of salt, and that salt was the key to survival, exploration, and, eventually, the creation of a cultural icon. It's a testament to how food travels, how it changes, and how it tells the story of the people who make it. So yeah, there's no actual corn in your corned beef, but there's a whole lot of history, a ton of flavor, and one heck of a good story. And honestly, that's way more interesting. Thanks for watching, and if you dug this little food history dive, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more. See you next time.